By sundown, half of Winter Crossing had crowded outside Silas Reed's stable. For the same reason people gathered at fires, fistfights, and funerals. They wanted to see disaster with their own eyes. 5 coins says she never gets through the gate, a butcher said. Make it 3 breaths, someone answered. At the center of it all stood Mara Chen, a young traveler with wind-burned cheeks, a plain dark coat, and the kind of steady posture that only made the town laugh harder. Because on the other side of the gate, smashing one iron-shod hoof against frozen mud, was Tempest. Tempest was the kind of horse people talked about in lowered voices. A tall silver stallion with a ragged scar down his shoulder, a black mane whipping in the cold, and eyes that seemed to decide in an instant whether a human deserved to be near him. Teamsters called him cursed. Drunk men called him devil-bred. Silas called him by name and kept everyone else away. Silas stepped out of the stable with straw on his sleeves and winter in his face. He had spent so many years among horses that he carried their silence into every room he entered. "This isn't a carnival," he said, looking at the crowd first, then at Mara. "He throws men twice your size." Mara didn't look away from the stallion. "Then maybe men are the problem." That got a few laughs. It also made Silas study her harder. The truth was, Mara had not come to Winter Crossing looking for a legend. She had come looking for work. The freight road had shut early. Her wagon party had moved on without her, and by the time she heard there might be room at the stable, the town had already decided to make her their evening entertainment. One of the miners had pointed toward Tempest's pen and said, smiling too wide, "Earn your supper. Ride him." They had expected her to flinch. Instead, she walked to the gate. Tempest lunged so fast the chain snapped with a brutal crack. Gasps shot through the crowd. Silas moved instantly, one hand up, voice low and sharp. Back. The stallion's ears pinned, his body coiled. Mara stopped exactly where she was, not brave enough to be careless, not scared enough to run. Then she said quietly, "Tempest." Not "hey," not "easy boy," not the sweet nonsense strangers use when they want an animal to obey before they've earned the right to be heard. His name. The stallion tossed his head once. Then, for one strange second, he listened. The laughter behind her thinned. Silas noticed it too. That should have been the end of it. A tense little moment. A crowd disappointed there was no blood yet. Mara sent away before nightfall. But the next morning she came back. She came back when the water troughs were ice-rimmed and the sky still looked half asleep. She came back with market scraps and patience the town did not deserve. Sighed Tempest's pen and spoke to him the way Silas had only ever heard one person speak to a wounded thing, as if fear was not ugliness, as if fury was not evil, as if violence might only be pain with nowhere to go. Silas watched from the stable doorway, pretending to sort tack. "You've got a strange way about you," he told her on the third day. Mara smiled without looking up. You talk to him too. He listens when I feed him. That's not the same thing. No, she said. It means he's lonely enough to bargain. Silas almost laughed, which surprised him more than her answer. Winter Crossing had spent years making a joke of Silas Reed, the man who preferred stalls to saloons, the man who trusted a horse with teeth bared before he trusted a smiling neighbor, the man who had once ridden the northern mail route and come back quieter than before, with one ruined saddle and no explanation worth repeating. Now the same town that mocked him had found a new amusement, standing by the fence to see whether Mara Chen would be the next fool flattened in the mud. They started bringing wagers. She'll lose a finger before the week is out. She'll cry before noon. Silas will drag her out himself. But something kept interrupting the script they wanted. Tempest stopped charging the rail when Mara approached. Then he stopped baring his teeth. Then one afternoon, after a full hour of stillness so patient it made the crowd restless, he lowered his head enough for her fingers to touch the bridge of his nose. Nobody laughed after that. Silas looked at her the way men look at weather that suddenly changes direction. How are you doing this? Mara kept her hand where it was, light as breath. I'm not winning against him. I'm giving him one reason not to fight. That night, beneath the loft ladder while the lantern burned low, they spoke longer than either of them meant to. She told him she had spent most of her life moving from one hard place to another, learning early that people liked obedient girls and useful girls, but they feared girls who decided things for themselves. He told her almost nothing at first, which was still more than he told anyone else. The next day he told her Tempest used to pull the winter mail. He wasn't born mean, Silas said. He learned it on the mountain. He did not say more then, but Mara heard the weight in it. Days turned into a rhythm. Mara with the brush, Mara with the bucket, Mara standing beside Tempest's shoulder until his breathing matched hers, Silas fixing harness in silence, then less silence, then no silence at all. She told him she wanted more than a bed in whatever town would keep her. She wanted enough money to send for her mother and younger brother before another bad season trapped them where they were. She wanted a life that did not belong to chance. He told her he used to think the same way, before one winter taught him what the mountain could take. By the time the first snow dusted the rafters white, Tempest let Mara lay a saddle blanket across his back. The town felt it before anyone said it aloud. This was no longer a joke. So, of course, the town demanded a show. "Ride him!" the butcher shouted one morning, bold now that there was something real to lose. "Or admit you only taught him tricks." Silas stepped forward, jaw hard. Mara touched his sleeve first. "Not for them," she said. "For us." He should have stopped her. Maybe he would have if she had looked uncertain. She didn't. The yard went silent as she set her boot in the stirrup. Tempest trembled once under her weight. Mara leaned low, palm on his neck. "Just one step," she whispered. "That's all I'm asking." He took it. Then another. Hope moved through the crowd like a spark catching dry timber. Then a dropped pan clanged behind the stable. Tempest exploded. He shot forward with such violence the world seemed to tear loose around him. Mara held for 3 strides, maybe 4, before the stallion twisted hard and sent her crashing into the fence. The crowd screamed. Silas was already running. By the time he reached her, she was conscious, but barely, breath sawing in and out as snowmelt soaked her sleeve. Tempest stood at the far end of the yard, wild-eyed, chest heaving, every old terror back in him at once. The town had its story now. "Told you. Should have ended this days ago. Some animals don't change." Silas heard all of it and none of it. He carried Mara inside, rage and fear knotting so tight in his chest he could barely speak. "I should never have let you do that." Mara winced as she sat up against a tack trunk. "You didn't let me. I chose it. You could have broken your neck." And he looked more afraid than I was. That answer hit him harder than the fall had hit her. Outside, Tempest slammed the stall wall once, then again. Silas finally told her the part he had buried. Years ago, on the North Pass, an avalanche had torn down the slope without warning. Tempest had been on the lead line. The world became white noise, splintering wood, men shouting prayers they did not believe would work. Silas survived. 2 others did not. Tempest was dragged half buried from the wreck, bleeding, blind with panic, and from that winter on, any sudden sound could send him back into the storm. I kept him because nobody else would understand what that fear looked like, Silas said. Maybe the truth is, I kept him because I didn't know what to do with my own. Mara looked at him for a long moment. Then stop asking him to forget. The room went still. That was the turn. They stopped treating Tempest like a challenge to be beaten in public and started building him a world that did not lie to him. Silas desensitized him to noise, one careful step at a time. Mara never climbed into the saddle until his eyes softened first. Worked at dawn, when the town slept and the cold made everything honest. Brush, blanket, wait, step, circle, stop, breathe. And slowly, impossibly, the stallion changed. Not into something lesser, into something willing. The same people who had once come to jeer now watched from farther back, hats in hand, speaking as if they were in church. They saw Tempest nose Mara's shoulder. They saw Silas smile without seeming to know he was doing it. They saw a man who had lived like a shut door begin to open. The real test came on the morning the river crossing glazed over. In winter crossing, the old freight bridge mattered. If the horses refused it, Supplies stalled, pay stopped, and the town spent the week hungry and angry. Teams had already backed off twice. Ice flashed beneath the planks. Wind screamed through the gorge. Every animal could feel the danger. Tempest should have refused it too. Instead, Mara walked him to the bridge while half the town held its breath. Silas stood near enough to grab the rein if everything fell apart, far enough to let this moment belong to her. Mara touched Tempest's neck. "You know the fear," she whispered. "So do I. Cross anyway." Then she mounted. No drunken cheering, no stupid bets, not now. Just the sound of leather, wind, and a horse deciding. Tempest stepped onto the bridge. One plank groaned. The river roared under the ice. He flinched, nostrils wide. Mara didn't force him. She stayed with him. Another step. Then another. Halfway across, the whole town understood they were watching more than a ride. They were watching an animal outrun memory. A woman outrun every small future the world had tried to hand her. A man watch hope return to his own life in the shape of someone else's courage. When Tempest reached the far side, Mara let out one sharp, astonished laugh that cut through the cold like sunlight. The town erupted. Not mockery. Not this time. Silas did not cheer. He just stood there, eyes bright, like he had spent years in winter and had forgotten spring was real. That evening, when the bridge had been crossed, the supplies moved, and the town had finally run out of things to say, Mara found him in the stable beside Tempest's stall. The lantern lit one half of his face. The other stayed in shadow. "I can leave come thaw," she said softly, "if that's easier." Silas looked at her like the words offended him. "You think I want this place to go quiet again?" Mara smiled, but only a little. "This place was quiet long before me." "That's what I mean." He stepped closer, careful in the way men are careful when they mean something enough to fear saying it badly. "I don't have much besides this stable," he said. "A roof, work, a difficult horse, a town that only recently learned manners." She laughed under her breath. "But if you want it," he said, "there's room here for more than winter. For your family, too, when the road opens. For all the things you said you were still trying to build." Mara's eyes went bright, and for the first time since he had known her, she seemed briefly speechless. "You're not asking me to stay because I rode Tempest," she said. "No," Silas answered. "I'm asking because before you came here, this place knew how to survive. You taught it how to live." Tempest shifted behind them and bumped the stall door once, impatient with being left out of the moment. Mara laughed fully then, the kind that warmed a room faster than fire. "All right," she said, "but I'm not taking orders from you." "Good," Silas said. "I was hoping you'd keep that habit." By the end of winter, the story people told in Winter Crossing had changed. It was no longer about the stallion nobody could ride. It was about the day a town gathered to watch a young woman fail. And instead, watched her give a broken horse back to himself. And in doing that, she gave a guarded man a future. She gave herself one, too.